love your hair. I keep wanting to speak French because Mr. Ying is here. Do you speak French? Est-ce que tu parles français? How are you?
I don't speak French.
Okay. Never mind. Yeah, I like your hair. I'll just say it in English.
Thank you.
Yeah, my life, I keep changing languages, one to the others.
Right.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this evening. There's some people that are trickling in. Maybe they thought it was at 7, hopefully not. So I think we can get started at least with some introductions while others are coming in. And so I'll just kick it off. Most of you know me. My name is Brett Husong. I'm the project manager. And this is the second Design Advisory Committee meeting. We held the first one at the end of October. And so this is a series of 3 design advisory meetings that we will be holding. So I'll start. People are still coming in. I'll start just down the list. So Ellen, can you go first?
About this as a family, mostly started by me.
Introductions.
Right?
That what we're doing?
Just introductions. Say who you're with, and we'll go down the line quickly.
I'll never forget it.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Ellen Stewart, landscape architect with Parks and Recreation.
Darkest chapter of my father's life.
I'm hearing some feedback too. I'm not sure if somebody else has
Listen.
maybe if people can mute their microphones until they're going, that'd be great.
I
Thanks.
understand that back now.
Yes, thanks, Ellen. I just muted everyone. Bill, can you introduce yourself? Zychek?
Bill Zychek, president of the Minnesota-China Friendship Garden Society.
Thank you. Carolyn? Carolyn, you might be on mute.
Where am I at? Here.
All right, well, Carolyn's doing that.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Sorry. Got
Okay,
it.
go ahead, Carolyn.
Okay, good.
Carolyn, can you introduce yourself and who you're affiliated
Oh,
with?
sorry, I came in late. I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't know that's what you were doing. I am Caroline Venn. I'm helping with the garden as an advisor for actually maybe 10 years or so, and helping in particular in the capacity, as the capacity of my parents waned. So I'm the daughter of Cece and Joyce Xiao.
Great, thank you. Christina, can you introduce yourself and just say briefly who you are affiliated with?
Okay, I'm Christina Morrison. I'm the Chinese advisory board member. I'm also a new member of the Garden Society. And I'm also the founder and CEO of my own multilingual communication agency called TGL International.
Thank you. How are you?
Hi, this is Hao Yu. I'm with Chinese Advisory Committee, and I am the landscape designer. I graduated from Harvard University last year, moved to Minnesota and helping with the garden design. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack?
Hi, everybody. Jack Byers. I'm the executive director of the Payne Valley Community Council. Brett, I'm not sure if it's your intention, but it says the administrator has my camera turned off. Anyway, happy to be here.
All right, thank you, Jack. No, I don't think we have that set, that it's off. I'll check again. Is this, I'm sorry to pronounce this wrong, is it Ji-Jun?
Oh, Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Yun. I'm a member of the China Garden Advisory Team from Chinese community. I'm a photographer and involved a number of fundraising events of the China Garden.
Thank you. Kao Li.
Hello, my name is Kao Li. I'm a visual and public artist.
Thank you. Linda.
And Collie designed Hmong Lucy. I am Linda Mealy Lowen, and I am past president of the China Garden Society and founders.
Linda, thank you. You're very quiet. If you could turn up your speaker. Linda is
Let's
on the
try
board
this.
and she is the
that better?
previous president.
better.
That is good.
Okay, I'll have to just hold it close again.
Thank
I don't know
you.
why it works fine on Zoom, but not Microsoft Teams.
Ping Wang, can you introduce yourself and your affiliation?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ping Wang. I'm a current president of Chinese American Association of Minnesota and also president of Fulan Folks Association of Minnesota. And I'm also a Chinese advisory group member of the Chinese Garden Association. And I'm a researcher of Biotechnology Institute in University of Minnesota.
Thank you, Regina. Regina, you might be on mute.
Unmute there. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Regina, and I'm just a friend of people who are interested in this garden project.
Thank you. Romy. Romy, can you introduce yourself? You're on mute if you are. You're still on mute. We'll get back to you. Stuart, can you introduce yourself?
Stuart Knappmiller, a board member of the group, and I live near the southwest corner of the lake.
Thanks, Stuart. Susan.
Sue Clavin, I live in the southeast corner of the lake. I'm a neighbor.
Thank you, Sue. Councilmember Tao.
Hi, everybody. This is Dai Tao, Ward 1, St. Paul City Council. Longtime supporter, here to just observe and see how I could further support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Valen. Excuse me, Valen.
This is Valen, Hmong Advisory Group.
Thank you, Ying.
Ying, you are muted.
Romy, would you like to introduce yourself? Well, Ying unmutes.
Romy is still muted too.
There you go. Now you're unmuted.
Okay, very quickly. I'm a board member. I live on the east side. I love the garden, and I'm really excited about this next phase.
Great. Thank you, Romy. Ying, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Ying Zhang. I'm the chairman of Hmong Advisory Committee and also member of the Hmong Design Advisory. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I know that takes some time, but we have some new people here tonight, so I wanted to make sure everyone is familiar with who's on the committee and who's online. We have also sent this out with the help of Councilmember Tao and Councilmember Yang's office to reach out to the community. So this is transparent. We are also recording this, so we can send this to others that have missed the meeting, and this will be posted to the project website. And I'll just begin to go through a little bit of an overview of the project because we do have some new people. And I will begin by saying that this is the second meeting. The first design advisory meeting was in late October, and we basically went over the project, the schedule, and we went into an introduction to the Hmong migration story, and then also we discussed the Chinese garden principles. And all of those presentations are online if you want to go back and review them. And so
I am online now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Pesic?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Great. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Bill Pesic. I'm a landscape architect for 40 years. I've been involved with the thought, the consideration, the idea of a Chinese garden for about 14 years when I met with Linda and her co-team. And right now I'm advisor and working with Brett and all the team members and working into the interpretation of the garden planting primarily right now. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. So as a reminder, just proper etiquette, try to keep yourself on mute when not talking if you can. If you have questions, Ellen is here to help and she can read the chat. So you can always type anything in the chat. I'd like to go through a lot of the introduction. So I'll go through the advisory committee role again, what your role is, the process with the city, our project background, and then I'll go through the meeting goals. And I sent out a few questions last night and I've received quite a few responses. So I want to go through the original design intent of this space and then what I've received from folks about those questions and about the space in question for the Hmong Plaza. We originally were going to go through the donor wall too, but I think we have enough to discuss tonight just with the Hmong Plaza, and we can roll that into one of the donor wall into one of the future meetings. So I think we're going to talk about potential locations and design elements. So let me go through the presentation and then it'll probably take 10-15 minutes and then we can get into the discussion items about the Hmong Plaza and its location. So there's a lot here on this page, but the role of the Design Advisory Committee is to assist Parks and Recreation, exists the Minnesota China Garden Board with the design process. And so decisions will be by consensus, not voting. Remember, we want to be respectful and understand that there's a balance, and we'll go through what are the balance of all park users and also with Parks and Recreation itself, and to be open-minded because there's a lot of different perspectives that we're going to go through. So the design advisory role, which many of you on here are in it, to attend at least 6 virtual meetings, and like I said, we're going to just help guide the design. We're not necessarily going to be designing it necessarily. We are going to find patterns, forms, spaces, location, materials, cultural stories that are significant that we can use for the plans and the design. And so the tentative schedule is we will go through schematic design this fall, winter, and then hopefully go into construction documents in the spring and begin some construction for the Hmong Plaza and the pavilion landscape in the spring for bidding, and then summer construction into the fall. And so what I want to point out here is we all have a lot of different perspectives. We all have different ideas for the park, but we have a larger system that we need to look at. And so Parks and Recreation has our goals that you can see here on the left side, and we present this at nearly every meeting, just to give the community an idea of what we are weighing in when we have a project. So we are here in between the community process. You are the representatives of the community. We will go out to the community once we have an idea of where we want to design the features, which I'll go through the phase 2 features. We also have a city systems plan that we're taking into consideration. We're looking at the site context. It's a fairly unique site. Most of you have been out there with it being on an island, with the water surrounding it. And we're also looking at budget considerations, funding. Operations and maintenance is going to be a big one with our seasonal conditions. And then we have regulatory with permitting. So there's a lot of factors that are going into a lot of the decisions for each element. And so we're kicking off phase 2. I went over phase 1. You can go back and take a look at those online if you want to. We have a lot to talk about, so I don't want to get into it in depth, but what was completed in phase 1, before I get to that, I should say that the China Garden is located in Phelan. It's on the northeast side of the city. Here's the China Garden on the northwest side of Phelan. There's an existing parking lot, and it is really kind of on an island scenario where you need to cross a bridge. Phase 2, this is the blow up of what we are completing. Phase 1 was the completion of the Western Gateway, and then also the completion of the pavilion, the China Garden Pavilion. So phase 2 is highlighted in red. This is what we're going to be, the second meeting where we're kicking it off. And this is Arts and Cultural Legacy or Heritage Fund. It's a legacy grant. And then we also received state bonding for construction. And so the purpose of the project goals is to go through community engagement, design, construction like we talked about, but also to understand and launch a capital campaign. And that means we need to have an understanding of cost estimates for these next features. And then it's construction of the Hmong Plaza and the pavilion landscape. So the 4 things we're looking at right here is the Hmong Plaza. It's the current design from the 2017 master plan. And then we're looking at the pavilion landscape. This is just south of the landscape or the pavilion, in between the channel and the pavilion itself. The other component is the donor wall and moon gate that is off on the east side. So this is can be in conjunction with the east entrance. And then we're also looking at the moon bridge, which crosses the channel on the southernmost point of what we're calling the China Garden limits. And the purpose of this meeting is to really to figure out where we want the location of the Hmong Plaza, the size of the Hmong Plaza, and then to recommend symbols, patterns that we see on site, whether it's the walls or the floor. So those are really, it's really basic that I want to look at. We're not going to be getting into designs, so we're not looking at specific lengths, heights of some of these features. That will happen in the future by hired artists that we have here tonight, Kao Lee, and then by other landscape architects and engineers that have worked on the project, which include the city of St. Paul, and then also Chinese engineers and designers. And so I really want us to focus on where we are citing this, because I think there are some differences between the number of people and the size of the plaza and where it should be located. And so here's a bird's eye view of the Hmong Plaza looking north. This is the Western Gateway that was installed, and here's the pavilion. This is the moon gate, the donor wall, and the front landscape. And I wanted to kick this off because I've been showing a lot of the images from 2017, which is when the master plan was completed. And so these images, what you're looking at now, are from the master plan. They were designed by the Chinese designers. And so the original design of the Hmong Plaza was to have a capacity around 50 people. And so this is the image, the conceptual image that has not been approved, but it is to hold 50 people. It has a series of cultural elements that includes the women's headgear or headwear, There's the wind instrument, the axe horns, Hmong women dancing, and then it's a man using the instrument. So there are a lot of the cultural aspects that does show a wall with some of the Hmong migration stories. So it is a fairly intimate site with only 50 people. I believe it was designed to be in harmony with other garden elements, including the plaza, the western wall, or the western gateway, and then the lakeside pavilion, which would be south of this. And so this displays a lot of the Hmong arts and heritage, but it is also supposed to be the cultural bridge and strengthen friendships, which is part of the idea of the garden. And so this is as far as it was taken in 2017. We did get conceptual plans, and then have an idea of what are some of the features. And so I sent out questions last night, and we did discuss some of these questions at the end of the design advisory meeting, the first meeting. And I thank everyone for sending responses. And so I want to go through a few of the responses that I have received, because there is differences between the size of the plaza. And so what I'm showing here is some of the comments from mainly the Hmong Advisory Committee about what is the idea of the space that could be put there. So aside from the 50-person, the purpose of the space, what I've seen is it wants to be a celebration space, also education, meditation for other recreation activities such as Tai Chi. And so it's really this multi-use space. That's the idea, the new idea away from the 2017 master plan. It still wants to be a cultural bridge, strengthen friendships, display the Hmong arts and heritage, and bring the Hmong contribution to St. Paul, and also to be this peace and tranquility. So it does have that aspect of being intimate, but the overall desire from the Hmong community is to have a capacity of 200 people, or roughly it could be 3,500 square feet. We'll go through some of the sizes. But the comments I also have received from people is that this is an intimate site. A lot of these elements were designed to be in harmony with each other. And so coming back around and thinking about a 200-person plaza may not fit within this site, and it does not fit with some of the perceptions of others on this call today. And so what I want to discuss is I want to understand if it's not going to be 50 people, which I don't think that's the desire, where should it be located? It sounds like there's still a desire to be located on the China Garden site where we currently are looking at. One reason is because of the blessing ceremony that was conducted on site. But then there's also the other idea of if it's going to be on this garden site, it should remain at 50 people. So I think what we need to be looking at, because I think the Hmong community does want 200 people, we should look at, are there alternate sites? And so I've received some comments about alternate sites, and I'd like to go through a few of these, and then we can talk about the pros and cons of each site, and if we desire to keep it at 50, or if we want to expand it and look at other sites. So I'll go right into it I'm saying concept A is the first location, which is on site right now. It's what was proposed in 2017. And so you'll notice here, I have a dashed line. This is roughly the size of the 50-person plaza. And this is removing some of the spaces where there were alcoves around the tree, maybe for presentations or for other staging events. And so the smaller dash size is 1,500 square feet. So the pros of of this area is we can retain views to the island. We retain views throughout the site. And we can fit a 50-person plaza within this garden boundary or site. If we expand it to a larger area, which is the bold, this is roughly 3,500 square feet. We will have impacts to some of the vegetation that is beyond to the north, which are some oak trees. There will be a needed retaining wall. And like I mentioned, there are several people on the committee that believe this would not support 200 people, and I don't think that they would support the project being that large. And so I think that it's either, I believe people are comfortable with 50 or they are not comfortable with 200. So with this site, we have views. We're showing prevailing winds that are coming from the south. The larger green, darker green hatch here is native vegetation. Either way, we do have great views towards the pavilion. One thing to notice is the existing archway is here and the pavilion. So the expanded plaza does begin to push those limits, and it begins to become a space that is maybe not so intimate anymore. And you'll notice on each of these that we do have a key map showing the location of where everything is located. That is the first concept. I do have, I'm sorry?
Could you clarify one thing? When you said 200 people, do we know if that's seated or standing?
So I'll go through that. Thank you, Linda. That's great transition. So this is an image of the 200-person site. And so you can begin to see where it stretches the boundaries of the open green area. And the site is staked. You can see one stake here. So if you go on site, you can take a look at what this 200 space plaza would look like. This does not include space for a stage or podium. And we considered 15 square feet per person. So if you think about it, that is roughly a 4x4 square foot area. You could get chairs in that 4x4 square, but they would be very close. And so that is how we are roughly figuring the size of this space. So I'm assuming that, yes, you can, off of the 3,500 square feet, get chairs for people that are seated. Here is a second option. This is south of the China Garden site. So the access bridge, the stone bridge that is connecting the existing channel parking lot to the actual China Garden site. This is located just south of it. Here is an image of the site. So from this image, the parking lot is behind us. There is a sign that shows where the China Garden site is. And so you're walking down into a lower site. It is a bowl area, but it does flatten out at the bottom. And so this is showing in a dark bold line the similar roughly 3,500 square feet where we could get chairs for 200 people. It does provide space along the outside where there could be a stage or other events. So there is a little bit of overflow. There's views to the pavilion or to the future moon bridge. There is one tree here that could be affected based upon construction underneath the drip line of trees. One thing I do want to also show is there's an existing pathway. So there's infrastructure at this area. There's parking, but this is not necessarily ADA, and this walkway would have to be reworked to be under 5%. So the pros of the site is you could get 200 people in this area. It is currently a picnicking area that is not necessarily programmed at this time, so it is available. There are views to the China Garden, so it's not like you are removed from the site. You are near a parking lot adjacent to paths. Some cons are removal of vegetation. There needs to be rebuilding of the ADA access, and there will be a need of retaining walls along this western side of the site.
Brett, we have another question from Regina.
Yes, Regina.
Question is very basic. Like, does the city of St. Paul say how much space can be used for any of those improvements for the park? Or is it just free? You can choose how much land you need.
Well, all of it is parks land that we own. So our operations owns, well, the city owns and maintains it by our operations. And so we do have a master plan that does govern this site. So it's Phelan Regional Park. And so that has been approved by Met Council. And so one thing that I do want to point out is that the China Garden is on the master plan. So these improvements have been approved through that document. So one thing I do want to say is that I have reached out to some of the programming people and that maintain a lot of the events. And so I've worked with them to identify areas that are maybe underutilized. And so I wouldn't say that we can necessarily pick any place. I am looking at these and strategically picking areas that we know can accommodate 200 people and that are not being used to date. So thank you. That is
okay. Thank you.
Question.
All right. Thanks.
That is a second area that we were looking at. The third concept, and this has been suggested throughout the project, and I think it was also suggested in the master plan, but it is to look at the island, the picnic island. And so this is one area that we're looking at. It is the southernmost area. I think one other consideration could be the northern tip of it, which would connect with the Moon Bridge. But that area has been, we've taken that out of consideration at this point and moved it to this southern area, because one thing I do want to point out is there is this dashed line that it follows a contour. And so this contour is the 100-year flood line. And so I think it is in our best interest to initially look at areas that we know will not flood. And so this is on the southern end. One thing that is a benefit to using the picnic island is that we do have a view to the pavilion. So again, there is this visual connection to the China Garden where it feels like it could still be incorporated with it. We have a lot of space. Like Regina was asking, there's a lot of space here. Some of it does get programmed. So I think we need to strategically look at where this could go. One other thing that is a benefit is there is an existing drinking fountain that is immediately across the bridge, the access bridge. So there is some utility. The cons of this site, ADA access is needed. It is a long ways to get around to, I think the island is already accessible. I guess I should say it takes a while to get here. We're in a remote location. Even though we're adjacent to a path, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to get to. We're also near the flood plain or the flood line. And being on an island, it is going to be difficult to construct anything on this site. We would be looking at difficulties with logistics, with hauling. We would have increased costs with construction on this site. And so maybe it would reduce the amount of amenities or the size, or maybe it's the art or some of the features that are within the plaza because of the added cost to construct on an island. Finally, one thing I wanted to point out is we would also potentially compete with other picnic pavilion events. So this is one thing that we need to work with our other programming and events programmers to understand, is this a little too close, and maybe we should be looking at other parts of the island, but unfortunately those are areas in the floodplain. And I have reached out to the watershed district to see if there will be any changes in the future to the flood line. That is another option, option C. And a final option is option D, and this is near the amphitheater. And the reason we've selected this is because when I did receive information that this is could be used for it's a multi-use space, so you could have many different uses, and if there is a need for a stage or for seating, there is also benches already built into this area. And so I'll go through some of the pros. So this is the picnic pavilion. I'll go right here. I'll show you. This is the keyed area, the location. We are on the southernmost end of the channel. This is between the channel and the existing picnic pavilion. You can see it on this upper image in the background. We are near existing infrastructure. We are near a parking lot that can accommodate future parking, and we are along an area that already has stadium seating with an amphitheater. And so that is a benefit for any programming. Looking at some of the cons, it is difficult to get to this area for ADA access. There is a walkway that is over 200 feet from the parking lot that gets you to the upper elevation of the amphitheater. But if you wanted to get down towards the bottom at stage level, we would need to rework that ADA walk. We would also compete with other picnic pavilion events because we would be sharing parking lots or the parking lot, and there'd be a lot of activity if there's another event being used in the pavilion. And we'd also have to potentially remove some vegetation along this site. I will point out that we did reach out to the events coordinator with the city, and this is their least preferred option because of the proximity to the picnic pavilion, where we would compete with uses. So I want to open it up now and have a discussion about those preferred alternatives. I want to have a discussion about is there the opportunity to keep the 500 or the 50-person China Garden site, and then also think about if we wanted an alternative location for the Monk Plaza, could we have a new blessing ceremony? I think that was one of the reasons why we would want to keep it at the current location. So that is a quick overview of those 4 locations. I think we can also consider other areas if people have something in mind.
So it looks like Linda has her hand up. I don't know, Brett, do you want me to just kind of monitor who's got their hands up and call on people, or how do you want?
Yes, I think just to be orderly, if you use the raise your hand function, then we can call on you and go down the list.
Great. Okay, Linda.
I thought of one other pro for that last concept D is that it's not on an island like it would be inside the China Garden or on Picnic Island. So that may reduce construction costs. So I just thought that should be a pro.
Yes, that is a good point. And with the existing infrastructure that goes along with it.
And the second question is, I know some of the Chinese advisors were looking at a spot that would be to the north or left of the archway. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that or not.
Yeah, I could pull up the area I believe you're talking about. So if I can orient everyone here without getting too dizzy. Right here is the China Garden. This is the bridge that we used to cross it. This is the channel parking lot. We have the picnic island, and this is the picnic pavilion. Here's the golf course parking lot. So I believe, Linda, are you talking about an area to the northwest of the archway?
It is not that far up.
Okay, so further south, right here.
yeah, that 3 clumps of trees there, right in the middle of that.
Yeah, so that's a good question. We looked at that area. I think it could be a potential. One thing that is difficult for this is we still need to cross the bridge. There are a lot of mature trees in this area, and it already is a site that is similar to the amphitheater, where it is on a major slope. It would require amphitheater style seating or type construction where there are many tiers. And I think it would be a difficult site to build on. And so if we're looking for a scenario that is on a slope, or we wanted amphitheater type seating, we already have that in the scenario with the amphitheater by the pavilion, or there's the scenario on the southern side. So this is scenario B, or concept B, where it does begin to flatten out, where there would be less construction costs and you would still have that view of the pavilion.
So I'm just going to quickly say that I do have the ability to mute people, and I'm doing that if you're not speaking and I'm hearing feedback. So I apologize if that it feels like I'm shutting you down, but feel free to unmute yourself when you're going to speak. Ying, it looks like you are the next person with your hand up.
Ying, I think you are muted.
I think it is a little bit too late to change the location, because according to our Hmong culture, if you do the site dedication or the feng shui blessing, then you have to keep that at the site. So that is one thing. And the other thing, I think that the new borderline as a whole, Brad, you think that it can hold up to 200, right? The current site.
Yeah, Ying, what I was showing here is there is space to put 200 people.
Yeah.
But it comes at the expense of removing trees, and it also comes at the expense of using the entire green space and pushing on the boundaries against the pavilion and against the existing archway.
Yeah, I think that we the advisory committee, we like to keep the current site, and then I think that there are some new board members coming tonight, and I've been talking about that in the past meeting. The reason that we keep increase the number or the capacity of the Hmong Plaza and for an open space is because we, the Hmong people, thinking about this China Friendship Garden is only have the Chinese and Hmong element on it, and we don't want to left other community, and then we would like to create this capacity, this space, open space, and for those community who are non-Hmong, non-Chinese to use, and then that what we keep asking the 200 capacity is for their reason. We don't want to miss other community in the Twin City. That is the purpose that we like to include every community, that non-Hmong and non-Chinese into that for usage. So I think that's a little bit too late to talk about changing the location. We already did the feng shui blessing and site dedication. So we keep the current site. Thank you.
Brett, I don't know if you have a response or I should go to the next person.
Yeah, thank you for the response, Ying. I think you can go to the next person.
And I'm not certain, but I think I might have lowered somebody's hand, and I think it was Ali or Allie. Did you have your hand up? And you're muted if you're trying to speak. Otherwise, we don't have any hands up. Oh, Yang. Oh, you just lowered yours. I can't keep up. Okay, Jack Byers. Jack, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I wonder if those who know these sites a little bit more intimately, or those who know the lake more intimately, have a sense of the difference in microclimates of these sites and how much the microclimates are adaptable or could be adapted to the intended purpose. I know that sometimes you can be in a very sunny spot right next to the lake, but the wind coming off the lake makes it very cold and you know, not quite as nice as a place that's not as windy. So I wonder if some of those considerations have been talked through so far, or if they need more conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, if you have any other comments, but we were looking at sites that had a similar southern exposure. I think the site with the amphitheater probably is a little bit more shaded. And you know, it depends. If it's a cloudy day, I think it may be a little bit colder, but on a hot sunny day, you're gonna have more shade. I think a lot of them are comparable, but you know, the being down on the island is probably a different microclimate. You're right, compared to being up on the bluff, I guess on the bluff, or up on the higher ground tucked in behind all the trees of the China Garden. I think more analysis is probably needed.
Good question. Romy, I think you are next, and then Linda after that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about microclimate, but just the interest in keeping the location right where it is. And I think before we jettison that, I think it might be worthwhile looking at different design ideas, because what, you know, the design proposed there was long and wandering and elevated. And there's some other design ideas that I believe are out there that are much less intrusive, that function as a stage, and that, you know, would preserve an element of surprise. But I understand we're not going to be discussing those at this meeting, but I just want to suggest that there may be some design solutions that that would allow that plaza to be there and not be the problem that it appears to be now.
And my question kind of piggybacks on Romy's, because if we're looking at, this is a 200-person space, and I'd like to hear more about the uses, because if you also have to have space for a wedding ceremony in addition to 200 people seated, or a performance space for musicians and dancers in addition to 200 people seated, will this current expanded size even meet those needs?
Thanks, Romy. Thanks, Linda. I think at this point, Romy, just to speak to your design ideas, we could, I think what my intention is to take this information and to provide it to our designers, our artists, to our Chinese designers to possibly creatively look at that. I think if we're just looking at space and size, it deviates from what the initial master plan was. And so what I want to think about right now is some of those elements of, we will be bringing more people to the space at times if there are bigger celebrations, because we are building an event space rather than in an intimate space. And so I don't want to get into the design. I want to understand from this group, if this is the site, are we comfortable with 200 people and trying to max out this screen space? I would say you could do it, but we are now pushing the limits against the pavilion and against the western archway. So it's either we are understanding that this is the size that needs to be in there, or we're reducing the amount of people in the programming that is on this site.
Great, thank you. And then Juhon, I think you're the next one. Please correct me because I'm sure I mispronounced it. And you are muted currently.
I think his name is Ji Jun.
Ji-jun,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I also would like to give my opinion about the location. First, I think if we want to expand the Mount Plaza to hold 200 people, that is fine. But given that idea, I just don't think that this location will work best towards our purpose of the usage of the plaza. Consider when I talk with people, we are thinking how to use this this event space. Is very likely will be some like ceremonies, like a wedding, birthday party, graduation, or some maybe just some interested group get together. But this place is so close to the main road of the garden, so I just think if people hold the event there, and the passers-by just go around the location, I just all people won't feel comfortable. Although we don't set these people as this place as a private location, but it should be leave some distance from the public eyesight, or at least give some separation or distance there. That's my one of my concern. Another concern is that, as Brad mentioned, this will push the boundary to the pavilion and the archway, because we now have a very good blueprint of a very good design of the garden, and we don't want. I just want to, if we expand this just too much, it seems that not in harmony with other components of the garden. That's my concern. Yeah. So my idea is that if we really want to expand the plaza, I would vote to move to another location. My first idea is just maybe moved to the northeast of the current place. But of course, we need to consider other factors like remove vegetation or the hills of the slopes. But anyway, my idea is that yeah, this location may be not good for holding 200 people.
Great, thank you. Christina?
Yes. Before I share my feedback, I'd like to know, actually ask Brad the question, who will be the final decision maker in terms of the size and location of the Mount Plaza? Brad, can you answer that question for me, please?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what my role here is to help guide the process and create a transparent process. And so I think we need to come to an understanding of what was the initial intent of the design of this space. And I think we're going to take in consideration of what we're hearing tonight and follow up. To be honest, I don't know if we're going to have a decision tonight by everyone. And I think we need to discuss internally.
Well, I have to tell you guys how I feel. To be honest, I have been confused. The reason I'm saying this is because, as originally conceived, the Mount Plaza was a cultural education place with a small performance area where viewers can sit or stand on the ground around it. Now I'm getting confused because it seems that the Hmong advisors or the people in the Hmong community would like to have a more an event center with cultural symbols or for performances or for 200-person celebrations. And this place could even become a social venue, like you can hold weddings or graduation parties. So this is quite different than what we had originally planned or we were originally informed. So I am definitely not in favor of the Hmong Plaza being expanded 4 times bigger to accommodate 200 people in this original spot. I'm talking about China Garden. I'm not talking about the microclimate or vegetation disruption or ruin, but I'm more concerned about the total design and the harmony of the garden. So I believe if we expand this Mount Plaza at this original spot, I believe the plaza would overpower the Xiangjiang Pavilion, because in my mind, the Xiangjiang Pavilion this is a really magnificent piece of the garden, and it's a very important gift from the sister city of Changsha. So it would be really ideal to preserve the stunning beauty and the quiet atmosphere around the pavilion. For me, that is very important. So if the Mount Plaza has to stay in the original spot or location, then I really hope that there will be no expansion there, maintaining the 50-person capacity. Personally, if everybody wants to have a performance stage or some sort of social venue or place, then I would say a separate location or a separate stage could be considered to be built either in the Picnic Island or by the White Archway or in the Channel parking lot. So in summary, I just want to say I'm definitely not in favor of the Mount Plaza being expanded 4 times bigger to accommodate 200 people in its original spot, which is in China Garden. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if it's better for me to try to pronounce names or if I should not. So tell me if this is horrible of me to try and do this. Hayu? Is that what it is? Thank you.
Hayu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. We can help you. Hayu is her name.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm like looking at the different design options or like site options. I feel like just me as a landscape designer, I would question like how the 200 people capacity is calculated from. Is there any like certain type of activities that requires around 200-ish people, or like how the number is calculated? That's my first question.
Yeah, thank you. So when I'm looking at the 200-person size, I was looking at, and I can send you the website, but it's the 15 square feet per person, and that was associated with plazas or other event type spaces that are outdoors. And so that's how I'm roughly trying to figure out the size of the boundaries. And I was roughly trying to calculate that based upon the existing 50-person site.
Right. Because for me, it seems like the 200-person space is kind of like you need a lot of space to do activities, but like without a I would say, rigorous understanding about what kind of activities or like what kind of ceremony we're going to have and what kind of frequency we're talking about. I feel like having the idea of plaza, I would suggest us just to take one step back to see if there's any potential for having a flexible space that can be both intimate and occasionally expanded as a plaza. It's, to me, it seems like more reasonable way to understanding having a small plaza inside of the Chinese garden, because I feel like having this place inside of Chinese garden is kind of not something I am very familiar with when I look into traditional Chinese garden language, and I feel like there's definitely some ways that we probably need to rely on the designer to look into the design solution or looking into more flexible solutions to have the space. And for me, after looking at different design options, I actually wanted to say my favorite is actually the concept B, the location where is the northwest to the site, just from the designer level, because I think it's still very connected to the Chinese garden. It's almost like created an arch that around the island, and I like the kind of the messages sent out. It really shows the friendship from the plant level, and also this one, and I think this is much more spacious when compared to the previous one. So we are very limited in space in the Chinese garden. So it's almost like you wanted to solve the most difficult problem in a most limited spaces. I don't really see the point. Like if we can just having this space, potentially maybe we can even consider about like 300 people in this place, because you also see there's less vegetation compared to that side. So that's less cost in plant removal. And also this is very close to the parking lot and to all the access roads. So which means the construction cost and people's accessibility to there will be much more open. And I just think this is, for me, I think this is a better solution, and that's almost like a win-win solution that really aligns with what we want. Like not only open this park to Chinese people or Hmong people, because we have this spacious venue, we can truly reach to the point that we can open the space to everyone. So yeah, that's my thoughts so far. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Tao.
Thank you, Alan. Brad, quick question. What is the square footage of the non-Hmong infrastructure?
The square footage of this dash line right here.
No, of the non-Hmong, like the square footage of the pavilion and all the other infrastructure that will be created in phase 2. And also in phase 1.
That's a good question. I would need to look up what that is. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay.
So I would have to, I'd have to send that information out. I
think that'd be helpful in terms of, I understand. I mean, I just like to see the footprint of which is which. And then the other question I want to understand is, Mr. Yang talked about the significance of the spiritual ceremony. I guess that has not been addressed by folks who oppose it. And so I just want to hear, do they understand that, or do they need more explanation? And so that's the second one. And the third question I have is this 200 number arbitrary? Could it be, 150, 100? Like what are they? Does that number matter?
Yes, thank you. Those are all great points. I can try to get, or I can get the footprints for you. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to the significance of the ceremony blessing after they've understood that that occurred during the dedication. But I will ask Ying if he could speak right now about the significance of the 200 people. I believe that it was the Hmong Advisory Group that came up with that number. And can
Brad,
it fluctuate?
Brad, let me clarify. What I want to hear is, because Yang explained that there's spiritual and cultural significance of the ceremony, but folks who spoke in favor of relocating, I just wanted to hear from them. Do they understand the significance of it?
Yeah, I think the question to relocate to the Mount Plaza is come too late. Why don't we talk about that earlier? Because we've been talking about 2 years ago till now about the increase of the capacity, and then I think that based on what I heard, the comment is want to detach the Mount Plaza from the Chinese Garden, and that I don't feel like that is a kind of friendship garden. A friendship garden in the beginning, before the Hmong Advisory Committee come to this project, the Hmong Plaza has been designed in 2017. And now I think that I don't know what the problem with this capacity. The current location is already hold 200, and why do we change to others location? And the feng shui blessing, the site dedication been done. So I don't agree with the changing of the location, and the significance of this Mount Plaza is that cultural ancestor cultural connecting. So the Hmong people came from China, and we all Chinese, but since we migrate to Southeast Asia, and then we change it to, for those who came to Laos and became Laotian, became Vietnamese, became Thailand, became Thai, and etc. So I don't feel good about detach the Mount Plaza from the Chinese Garden and talk about other location. It is not the time, you know. And then based on what we've been visiting, the original pavilion in Changsha, and that is an open space behind the pavilion, and that we don't know the usage of those or the space, but we've been seeing Chinese people or other people come to do the exercise like Tai Chi or other exercise. And that is the original pavilion in Changsha, China. So I think that I mentioned earlier, we don't just want to keep for Chinese or for Hmong. We want to share because those community are non-Hmong, they have chance to use this space because we don't want to miss them. And it is a friendship garden, even though they don't have any element in this site, but they can use this space, and that include everyone, and that is a friendship purpose. So I don't see any problem with 200 capacity, and I don't want to detach the Mount Plaza from the Chinese garden, because we are together from the beginning, and we live together. Our ancestors lived together in China for a long time until now. We still have 1,000 friends live over there. So we think about not just this space, but we think about our people and other people, non-Hmong and non-Chinese. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang. Ellen, I don't know if you were starting at the top.
I am. So, and I just want to let you know that we've got, I think, like 8 people that are lined up right now to ask questions, and we've got 16, 17 minutes left. So I just wanted to that out there, but Susan is the next.
I just
And
want
I'll be brief.
to make a quick comment. Can I just make a quick comment just after what Jin said? Just quick comment. I'm not really providing too much feedback here. Yin, let you know that most of us definitely understand the importance of the cultural and spiritual importance of feng shui blessing. However, we are not talking about the relocation of Mount Plaza. Most of us, from what I have understood, most of us are talking about avoiding extension of the Mount Plaza. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a good point, and I want to also say that I don't think we answered all of Councilmember Tao's questions, because he was wondering if there's more information about how the size was determined. And Brett, I don't know if you have an answer for that before we go to Susan.
No, I don't have an answer on the size. I guess I've been relying on the
For the number of people.
advisory group, and that number was at 200.
Okay, Susan?
So to be brief, I'm just thinking that to expand from a 50-person light use cultural center to a 200-person event venue, it seems like you would even require additional facilities. Like if you have a wedding and you have wedding gifts, you want security and kind of privacy from the general public. You might need restrooms, things like that. You know, has all of that been thought about? So it seems to me to fit in the existing space, it would be best to keep at the 50 and lighter use.
Thank you.
And
the
we
bills I
have
checked.
William. Yep.
It's almost as bad as some of the other names. Maybe
It is as bad as any of them.
Just to provide a little background, the original design was done in late 2015 and turned over to Parks and Rec in January of 2016, and included the plaza. And the scale of the plaza fit in well with the scale of the other elements of the garden at that time. The number 200 came up when we were in Changsha visiting our architects during the dedication of the peanut sculptures. And we were in the room talking about the plaza, and Thang Ying brought up the number 200. And I saw at that moment, Jennifer's our primary architect on this, her face just dropped. So there was some question of how big that space would be at that point. And it was suggested maybe 200 people would fit in the room we were in, and you know, you couldn't fit 40 people in the room we were in. So now we're seeing what kind of impact a 200-person plaza would actually have at the site. And I can understand why people have concerns. I I don't think we should be trying to develop a fully functional event center here. This could be half an event center maybe, but for anything to really be, to have an event where you're going to provide meals or anything like that, somebody would have to rent the picnic pavilion or the golf course ballroom or something. This site isn't going to easily accommodate that kind of facility. And I don't know that I would favor that, even if it could somehow do that. I do want to see the Hmong Plaza being in the garden. I am concerned about putting it out here, putting it out there. It was part of the original idea, and I still think we need to find a way to accommodate that. But I liked Hayu's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but your perspective. I know we had a fashion show at the pavilion this fall, and we had to have close to 200 people there for that show. And I can tell you for a fact, it didn't work very well because it's not designed for that many people. But with some accommodation in a surge mode, it could possibly handle something like that. And I'm thinking we need to think about the Hmong Plaza in a similar fashion, that normally it would operate not at a 200 capacity level because most people aren't going to use it that way. It's like a soccer field practically. So that's an exaggeration. But anyway, have something that would be a lower capacity under normal circumstances that could expand if for some reason you had an event that would handle 200 people. And even the site dedication, there were close to 150 people there for the site dedication, and there was no plaza at all. You know, so you can have a defined plaza without having a fixed capacity, essentially. So I'm just suggesting that as a way to move forward with this.
Thanks, Bill. I want to be respectful. We've got a lot of hands up. So if we can keep the comments to a minute for each here, we might get it done. So 30 seconds to a minute if you can. Ping Wang, I think you're up.
Hi, thank you. This is Ping. I just got 2 points. One is based on Mr. Yin's explanation. I think as a Chinese people, I do understand what your meaning about the spiritual importance of your blessing ceremony. And but I now, based on your opinion, I think maybe we can find another way. So for Hmong Plaza, we can still keep the original idea and the site. But if you want to expand the function for like as an event, maybe you can find other place. We can, I don't know if it's possible. Just as I thought, we can still keep the original one and to follow your idea. But if you want to do the events, maybe we can find other place in the park to do do them or design them, construct them separately. That's my point.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot the second point. Sorry. I didn't see the blueprint with the stage built up plus 200 audience. So if we see, I think if we saw the blueprint with the stage built up plus 200 people sitting, how big it will be in that place. I also wanted to see that one before I really make my final decision.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Ji Jun?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I think as a Chinese, I really appreciate and respect Yin's idea and your explanation about the spiritual cultural significance of the Mount Plaza. Actually, all my ideas, even to support your idea, but to make the plaza work best towards your purpose. Because based on your explanation, you want the plaza serve for some cultural events and some ceremonies. I just do think the current location is not appropriate place for that functionalities. Think about it just in this picture. If we move to the northwest a little bit, it is still in the China Garden. Actually, that's my idea. So my personal idea thinking is that's the ideal place for this location. It is still part of China. I have no, I never think to detach the plaza from the China Garden. I do think it's an integrated part of it. But that will give some privacy to the event venue, and that will work better towards your purpose. So yeah, to summarize, I respect the spiritual and cultural significance of the plaza, but what I'm just trying to find a better solution for this. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Carol.
Thank you. I think several people have covered some of the things I was going to say, but I had no idea that there was a, I mean, I had only seen the original design being for 50, and had not heard anything about a 200 sized spot until September, which would have been, after the ceremony, and I completely understand why that site would now be very important due to the ceremony. And I really appreciate the Hmong advisors wanting the space to be for the larger community. But when I'm thinking about taking out so much of the green space and the vegetation that the community enjoys as part of a park and garden, for a space that won't have a roof, so cannot be used for at least half of the year in Minnesota, and the plants could be there all the time, as could the scenery, then I become concerned that maybe we would take away from some of what current residents use the space for. And so I do support keeping the plaza and keeping it where it's at, but I am very concerned about it being very large in that spot, and agree with some of the other comments that if we want an event center, that might be better someplace else, and that would be a separate site, that the Hmong Cultural Plaza should stay. The Hmong Plaza should stay where it is because of the reasons that Ying has already described for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. How are you?
Yeah, I think most of the point has been covered by other committee. But I guess I want just to clarify that I definitely understand how feng shui is important in the Hmong culture and the Chinese culture as well. I'm a Chinese. But I do see that if we do not have a rigorous evaluation and consideration about the design language and the potential spatial impact, and then from design level, I don't see the expansion can be something that stay with the origin design idea of the garden. And I don't want it to, like, for example, causing any unnecessary competition between the two spaces, that which one is very flat ground and one is very tall pavilion. It's something like we can solve by design intelligence, and now just saying that, like, discuss just without seeing any design solution now. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks. I would like to ask Carol if she could talk a little bit about Chinese garden principles and what things we should be concerned about here when you expand something, from 50 people to 200, or maybe even bigger than this space, if we truly want to accommodate what Ying has talked about of how they want to use this space, of not just seating space, but also a stage area and performance space with seated people. Want to remind everybody this started as a cultural education space, and so expanding it into more of an event center has two big impacts on this space that we've heard about. One is the physical impact, that it may overpower the space, and the second is the programming impact, that if it's many activities of 200 people, and what kind of impact does that have on the quiet, meditative, contemplating in nature that typically goes on in a China garden. So I think we should think about that serenity of the Chinese garden. How much will that be impacted by high activity levels there?
Thanks, Linda. Carol, do you have a response within like 30 seconds?
Just very quickly, I would reiterate what Hao-Yu just said, which is that there are ways to keep the spaces both equally visually interesting, but having a gigantic space would be very hard, right? The balance, the symmetry, the proportions will be completely out of balance, and the ability to do any kind of hide and reveal to creating any kind of mystery. That will all be taken away, just briefly.
Thanks, Carol. Valen, we have 2 more questions left, and then I think we'll probably wrap up and talk about some next steps in summary.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I feel that looks like a lot of people have a lot of concern, and I value that as well. But looks like now we are gonna looks like we have to detach, according to what most people is concerned. I don't feel comfortable with that, and looks like the capacity or the the area of the whole garden. We need to know how much that is and how much has been dedicated to the garden, like Council Daitao said earlier, and how much that Mount Plaza is dedicated, and we need to know, and we need to balance it out. But it looks like, or another question is there a requirement or specific requirement how far or the distance between one element, between the elements of the China or the plaza or the Arch Gateway? Thank you.
Thanks, Ali.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the statements that are made, several of which overlap. I would say too that the expansion needs to be it has to be an extended discussion, that it's important to recognize that from the archway, the eye and the body are to be carried through to the pavilion, onward into the lake. And it is important to keep that in consideration because it is that depth that allows us to consider the garden as a whole. A garden is by nature infinite and offers the infinite. And should we wish to provide a spiritual and cultural connection, it is important that we too recognize how this is able to form in the context of Phelan Park. Secondly, the purpose, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Hao-Yu or anyone else, but a plaza carries civil and symbolic purpose, function. It is often where one pauses. It's not the same as a square or a piazza. Both of them offer ceremonial characteristics, but a plaza is, as Linda mentioned, a place where one considers in a pausing moment the cultural affliction, and in this case, of the Hmong story. And so if we detach these pathways that either guide the eye from the archway to the pavilion, if we imagine a lot of movement flooding over across the paved areas, we are not able to consider the value of the site in relation to the symbolic and in relation to the idea of what a plaza is. Plaza in relation to pavilion, proximity to pavilion, and embeddedness in nature. A plaza is not a plaza without that triangulation.
Thanks, Allie. I appreciate everyone's comments. I think there's good reasons for both sides. What I know we're not doing right now is making a decision. I would like to go back and talk with some of the designers and take a look at this and consider what are some of the options before we're moving forward. And so that is looking at maybe it's more of a flexible space where it is still the similar size, but we still have more of the green space. And then that's similar to what How You was discussing. So I think we need to do a little bit more evaluation before we move forward, and I'd like to have that information before we have our next meeting on the Hmong Plaza. One thing that that I've heard from Councilmember Tao's office, Councilmember Yang's office is to provide a little more transparency to the community. And so what I would like to do is what I'm showing on screen are some of the symbols and patterns that have been suggested by you and others in the community. And so I think what I would like to do is get a survey going to get people's opinions on some of these elements to see what are the most unique, what are the cultural symbols, patterns that should be incorporated into this plan while we're going through the understanding of the location. So I want you to keep your eye out for that. Our next meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday to talk about the donor wall and to discuss the pavilion landscape. And so I want to try to keep some of these other elements moving while we're deliberating on the Hmong Plaza. So I'd like to keep those. The time is at 6:30. I've already sent out an invite. We'll type up the notes. We can put this on the website, so you can share with your network. You can send it out to others once that is posted. And so the idea long term is to have an understanding of the location of all these elements, what are some of the major features, and then we will take that information to the designers, to the artists, and we will try to come up with a design that we can bring back to you, the Design Advisory Committee, prior to a public meeting, probably in January. So please send any other comments my way. I've taken a lot of notes. I'll send those around. And this isn't the last meeting for the Hmong Plaza, and there'll be more discussions going forward. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.
Good discussion.
Good night. Great meeting.
Okay.